please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
A puppet CBI and ED are being used to divert, deflect and distract attention from scams worth rupees 31,691 crore.
When such issues are raised, what is important is that the nature of evidence available against the offender must speak for itself and not the alibi of vendetta.
We have seen the Nirav Modi scam taking the center stage. It gives an apprehension that probably the arrest has been timed, arrest has been made to ensure that all those scams where the government feels the heat goes to the back door.
It was inevitable because he was not telling lies in the interrogation that was taking place.
Law is taking its own course, says the BJP. This is a political vendetta, says the Congress. The arrest of Karti Chidambaram, the son of former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram, as expectedly, has kicked up a political war of words between India's two main political parties. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ronaja. Kritika joins me from the Mumbai studio. Good evening, Kritika. But let's begin this show with the top story. And of course, Karti Chidambaram's arrest is our key focus. So after his arrest earlier today by the CBI for his alleged involvement in the INX media case, Karti Chidambaram has now been sent to 1 day's police custody. He was arrested at the Chennai airport after he returned from London earlier today. Let's quickly take you through the key highlights of this case. It goes back to 2007. That's when INX Media, a company that was promoted by then Peter Mukherjee and Indrani Mukherjee, they had approached the government for foreign direct investment into their company worth over 305 crore rupees. So that is what they had sought. But the Foreign Investment Promotion Board, or the FIPB, had approved only 4 crore rupees worth of FDI. CBI now claims that INX Media had flouted the FIPB's directive and actually went ahead and received investments worth 305 crore rupees, so thereby disregarding the approval that the FIPB had given them. So where does Karti Chidambaram come into the picture? CBI claims in its FIR, and let me quote from there, fresh proposal was approved by FIPB by virtue of influence exercised over them by Karti P. Chidambaram, unquote.
Well, Karti Chidambaram had claimed political vendetta when CBI filed this charge sheet last year in the month of May. He had said, and I'm quoting now, "I am being targeted politically and personally to besmirch the name of my father," end of quote. P. Chidambaram is in London right now, and he issued a statement saying, and I quote again, "The government's aim is to silence my voice and stop me from writing. All I will say is I shall continue to speak and write," end of quote. The BJP has been guarded in its response. The Law Minister did not say much during a cabinet briefing earlier this evening. The BJP's line is that there is no vendetta and law is taking its course and that nobody is above the law.
The law is taking its course, and the law must take its course. The CBI will explain all the details. We don't wish to interfere. But I will only make one observation. When such issues are raised, what is important is that the nature of evidence available against the offender must speak for itself and not the alibi of vendetta.
CBI gave them a lot of chances, but he continued to tell lies even when the documents were, I think. Now, the crime he has committed is to receive the bribe money. But the arrangement for getting the bribe was done by Chidambaram, his father. So Chidambaram also must be arrested.
Okay, let's discuss this further. And joining in now and to talk about the arguments in court, we have with us Abhishek Manu Singhvi. He appeared for Karti Chidambaram in court, and of course Ashmit Kumar was in court today to take us through that conversation, and he's here with us. Ashmit, take it away.
Mr. Singhvi, a pleasure speaking to you this evening. Good evening to you. We were there in the courtroom. We saw the arguments being made there. And one of the key arguments that you had made in defense of Karti Chidambaram while seeking bail was that it's ironic that CBI on one hand alleges non-cooperation, alleges flight risk, but at the same time the arrest is made as Karti Chidambaram is flying back into the country. As you had said, he is not a Hindustan leaver. Does this arrest now and the dramatic action taken by the CBI perhaps raise questions about the timings and the motivations?
Well, Ashwit, I didn't know you were in court, but let me start by giving you the premises of this interview. I am not speaking in political role. I am not speaking on the merits. I am not speaking on the judgment. I am a counsel in the case. I've just come from court. I argued for a long time. All that I will do is summarize my submissions. You can make what you want to make of them. And that is the fair way of commenting. Otherwise, I'm not getting into the merits at all. As you know personally, but as your viewers don't know, the first and foremost argument was that 28th of August last year was the last time the CBI sent me a summons. They'd sent me one before that. On both the summons I appeared and I gave full cooperation for almost 20, 25, 30 hours of interrogation. Now the remarkable thing about this case is this is a submission. It's not an appeal against an order, it's not a criticism of the order, it's not a comment on the order at all. I think we were heard with great interest and respect, and an order which is passed is only till tomorrow 12:30. But consider, Ashwin, that you don't have any questions for me for 6 months. Today is the 6-month anniversary of the last date when the CBI called me. And I land up from abroad and you arrest me. We are now talking not the merits, we're talking of the arrest. What is the necessity of arrest if you don't need the need to question me for the last 6 months? Number two, I am under Supreme Court and High Court orders, 2 of them, travelled abroad for 10 days each on different dates. Twice, roughly 20-25 days. Each time I gave them time, flight, details, stay, and returned on the relevant time stipulated. Dot. No violation. Is it not ironic that the reward for coming back on time as a law-abiding citizen is arrest? Number 3 submission I made was that the funny part is under law, under judgments, under Article 22 of the Constitution, you have to give me a ground of arrest. Have you given a ground of arrest? Answer is no. No ground of arrest. Then, of course, the submission was that this is a 10-year-old offence. The only tests for arrest are, as we all understand, either flight risk or tampering with evidence or non-cooperation interrogation. The test of non-cooperation does not arise if you don't call me and I don't come. You have to test my non-cooperation by calling me. The test of flight risk doesn't apply because I've come back each time. The test of tampering is absolutely bereft of a single detail, not one detail. Then what are they wanting the arrest and remand for? These are, you see, Article 21 is the life and liberty of an accused. The power of arrest, as the Supreme Court has said, and we argued this, is different from the exercise of that power. Merely because you have the power to impose death penalty does not mean you impose death penalty. Now you need to think about what considerations require, and today I would say this. At the end of the day, whatever we do tomorrow, the judge has allowed them till 12:30 on a 10-year-old charge, which, by the way, Ashwit, had Mr. Subbarao as chairman of the FIPB, 6 secretaries of Government of India, none of them interrogated even. Not one of them interrogated. The payment of 10 lakhs is to a company called Advantage Strategic, which he has been, Karti Chidambaram, has never, I repeat, never been a director or a shareholder. Now, and it's paid by check with TDS. That's the bribery charge.
Fair enough.
Now, on this,
fair enough.
If you have to do all this, then at the most you have time till tomorrow. You can interrogate him all night, all morning. There can't be more questions you have to ask after 10 years. And having had him for last 1 year on an FIR, and by the way, apart from this interrogation for the same issue, I've been interrogated for 36-40 hours with the ED also. So I think there has to be a rule of law and safeguards. And I think that is where this case is.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Mr. Singhvi, allow me to play the devil's advocate here. As you said, for the 1 hour, he will be available. He will be at the disposal of the CBI for questioning. Allow me to play just the devil's advocate here. They did raise the questions of how perhaps there has been non-cooperation in terms of non-compliance with the Madras High Court order conditions, which is a detailed itinerary of travel and an undertaking that he will be appearing, that Karti Chidambaram will be appearing before the CBI. Those conditions have not been met. Is that a valid grounds for arrest? Does that raise questions about perhaps possible non-compliance and hence the allegation of non-cooperation?
You were there in court, but you missed out. Ashwit, you were there in court, but you missed out because you're not a lawyer. Number one, this argument was raised after I'd finished the arguments by the CBI prosecutor. We immediately produced the affidavit filed in the High Court and the letter receipted by the CBI where we said that we have complied with all the conditions. What more do you want? Number two, When I showed that, the CBI prosecutor said to the court, this is not a ground for remand, I'm only pointing it out. Now I'll give you something more interesting. They have not mentioned anywhere, but they showed papers to say that they have recorded somebody's statement in February. Now if you have, as alleged, recorded some Mukherjee statement, this is what is alleged, I don't know, they are not given these details, either husband or wife, you have to be only picking up a book even as a layman and tell your viewers that this, I'm only repeating what I've argued, I'm not going into the merits. The submission was from our side that section 25 and 26 of the Evidence Act is very clear that if you are in custody for 2 years, that too on a murder charge, and somebody records a statement, that statement is completely inadmissible. The statement of a person in custody is completely inadmissible. So these are the only grounds that they're trying to juggle grounds, they're trying to desperately find grounds, whereas the application of remand didn't say anything of this sort.
Fair enough. Mr. Singhvi, one last question. I'll just take 2 more minutes of your time. This question about with respect to timing, it does happen to be, as you said in the court, that this arrest is most bizarre, the way it has been done, that the mere existence of power need not be the same as the exercise of power of arrest. With that in mind, does this perhaps raise questions about other motivations behind the timing, given that it does take the focus away from another major issue that we had been tracking for the last few days?
I have a lot to say, as you know, but since I'm appearing in this matter, I am neither speaking in my political role nor speaking on the merits in terms of the comment. I'm restraining myself. Prior to appearing, I had tweeted many things. You have them on tweets. But now that I'm appearing, I'm not going to discuss that part, of which a lot can be said. Thank you so much.
Completely appreciate your time, Mr. Singhvi. Appreciate your thoughts there.
Well, that was Abhishek Manu Singhvi, the counsel for Karti Chidambaram. Ashmit, thanks very much for taking us through that conversation. Remember, originally CBI had sought 15 days judicial custody, but this time what they've got is 1 day, so expect more action come tomorrow. On to the latest now in the 12,800 crore rupee PNB fraud case. The news is clearly tightening around Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi as investigative agencies are upping the ante. We are now learning from Enforcement Directorate sources that ED has moved the Prevention of Money Laundering court, seeking non-bailable warrants against the 2 accused jewelers. Sources also saying the non-bailable warrant will enable the Enforcement Directorate to begin the extradition process. Meanwhile, we're also learning that on taxman's request, the Bureau of Immigration has initiated the process for a lookout notice against the duo. Also, investigative agencies have begun a crackdown in several other bank fraud cases. The CBI has filed an FIR against West Bengal-based RP Infosystems and its directors. They are accused of fraud of over 500 crore rupees. For more on that story, Utkarsh Chaturvedi now joins in to fill us on all the details. Utkarsh, what are you picking up?
Let me explain the case to you first of all. So RP Infosystems is a company which deals into hardware, computers and laptops. Now what CBI complaint given to CBI by Canara Bank alleges is that a loan of somewhere around 515 crore rupees was taken by RP Infosystems, and then in turn going ahead they defaulted on these loans. And now what these bankers are really alleging is cheating on the part of RP Infosystems, basically on 3 grounds, and I will read those 3 grounds. One is cheating done through availing bank funds on basis of false and fabricated stock and receivables. Second, RP Infosystems inflated its receivables to show on the books of accounts. And thirdly is that RP Infosystems did not route the sale proceeds through the loan account and siphoned off the entire money. In fact, some of the clients of RP Infosystems which they showed in their books of accounts, such as CEAT and GAIL, went ahead and said that they had no business with RP Infosystems whatsoever. Now, what is important in this case is that these accounts were declared in NPA back in 2013, and in 2015-16, these bankers went ahead and declared the account of RP Infosystems as fraud and reported it to RBI. Now, why is it that after 2 years they have approached the Central Bureau of Investigation for really going ahead and looking into this case? 2 reasons. One can be obviously that after the whole PNB scam fallout, all the bankers are in a fear to report any such mischievous activities which have been there in the system in the past or going on currently. Or secondly, it can be that they have now gained courage to really go ahead and go to CBI and complain about this. But a more important question here is that if that's the case, how many of these cases at this point of time which have been fraudulent are under the wraps, and how many more cases in the next 1 month or 7 to 10 days we can see coming from the sides of bank, which we can see a mischievous activity or any illegal activity being taking place.
Okay, Utkarsh, thanks for putting that into perspective. So that's the latest as far as the PNB issue is concerned. But in yet another bank fraud case, the Enforcement Directorate has arrested R. Subramanian, the promoter and MD of Subhiksha retail store chain under PMLA. In 2016, the ED had attached properties belonging to Subramanian for defrauding Bank of Baroda of 77 crore rupees. Subramanian had then taken a loan in 2007 from the bank to establish the chain of retail store, which shut in 2009. After facing a severe cash crunch. But shifting gears completely, India's economy grew by an impressive 7.2% in the month of January. This at the back of a strong showing in the agriculture, the manufacturing and the construction sector. Remember, this is the highest quarterly growth recorded since the second quarter of FY17. GVA growth, which is basically GDP minus taxes, has grown by 6.7%, mildly better than what the expectations were, which was a 6.6% rise. So is this the turnaround quarter for the country? Lata Venkatesh is here with her take. Lata, what do you make of these figures? Is this really the turnaround quarter or not?
Well, the GDP GVA news is good, but not as good as the GDP number indicates. That number has come in at 7.2% for Q3 compared to expectations of 6.8. The news is not that great if you looked at the GVA number. The poll threw a number of 6.6% and what we have actually got is 6.7. So, okay, it's marginally better than expected. But let me first tell you the good news. The good news is agriculture growing by 4.1%, manufacturing which has grown by 8.1%. That's higher than several past months and quarters. And electricity as well, 6.1%, fairly decent number. But the best number really is construction, which has grown by 6.8. That's the best number in probably, 3-4 years, which means 12 quarters we have not seen such a strong construction number. So there's certainly something positive to say about the third quarter GVA numbers. The difficult ones to swallow is GDP is higher because GDP is GVA plus taxes, which means tax collection has looks like is very high. It's quite possible that GST taxes came in, but the input tax credit was not given adequately. It's also because the year ago tax collection was very poor for indirect taxes in particular, and that's why the GDP gets a boost because of higher tax collections. So there is a bit of an optical illusion about this very strong 7.2% GDP. Again, capital formation looks very good at 12%, but that again seems to be like a one-off, because if you look at the yearly projections, then capital formation is actually lower than the year ago level. Private final consumption expenditure has come in at only 5.5% for the third quarter and 6% for the full year. Again, that doesn't show a roaring economy. That said, the third quarter GDP is certainly a number better than what people have expected. Whether this is a start of a very strong upturn, we cannot yet say, because the banking sector is still maimed. And secondly, as these numbers themselves point out, exports are pathetic in India, just 2.5% growth in the third quarter. So clearly India is not participating in the global growth story. That's the negative.
Well, thanks very much for the breakup, Lata. But let's figure out how the government is looking upon these numbers. Sapna Das caught up with Subhash Chandra Garg, the Economic Affairs Secretary, just a short while back. He said that India was over the hump as far as the growth was concerned. As far as economists, we also caught up with T.C. Anand, the former chief statistician, and other eminent economists to get a sense of how they interpreted the GDP numbers.
The third quarter growth of 7.2%, especially manufacturing growth of over 8%, construction growing at 6.8%. All these indicate, and accompanied by a very good investment number captured by the GC, the gross fixed capital formation. All this indicate that we are over the hump. It's economy back to normal, growing at one of the highest rates in the world. So you are there. Everything indicates that, yeah.
So Q4, can we expect somewhere around in the 8% region, and how will this really impact your FY18 estimate also? 6.6 is what has come out in the revised number, but closer to the CA's admission of 6.75.
Oh, certainly our expectation is that the Q4 would be still better, and we would be closer to what the numbers are there in this economic survey that should be achieved. So 6.6, what CSO has put out as revised, we expect it to be upwardly revised when we have the quick estimates coming up in May.
Right. So around the 6.7% levels, as indicated in the econ survey, or somewhere around that?
You can't be very specific. That's the economy working measured by the CSO and all. But indications look very clearly and firmly that expectation that you would be closer to what has been put out in the economic survey and what we have taken into our budget estimates would be the reality.
So what are the challenges now, given these numbers? What are the big things that you have to now do in terms of pushing the investment cycle? Because if you look at the numbers closely, the private consumption has not really gone up to that extent. And it's the public spend that is probably keeping the economy going, but keeping your fiscal constraints in mind, how long do you expect that to continue?
It's not exactly like that. Private consumption has also been very good, close to about 59-60% in this quarter, if you've seen. The government consumption is slightly lesser than what it was last year. So it's not the government consumption driving the economy. So private consumption has also returned in my sense, in my judgment. So you would see both on the investment as well as on the consumption side, the growth being driven going forward.
What we are seeing in the agricultural growth, and in fact the improved number of the agricultural growth, is a fairly strong improvement in the non-crop side of agriculture, and some of this was intimated by agriculture in their revised estimate which they had put out, I think sometime in the month of December or January, I think January. Those improvements in agricultural growth are playing a role both in the improvement in GVA as well as in the strong showing of the agricultural growth.
This is a broad-based recovery, and I think the best way to assess that is what we look at core GVA, which is GVA net of agriculture and net of public administration. I think that's the best proxy that you see of the private sector business cycle, and that has seen a solid pickup from 6.9% to 7.4%. We're now at the levels that existed just before demonetization. The headline number of 7.2 was in part surprising, or was surprisingly positive, because the base from the previous year got revised down. So in the same quarter the previous year, GDP growth of 7 in the first round was moved down to 6.8. So there was a bit of a bump up that you got from that, and that explains some of the upward surprise compared to forecasts.
If you actually look into the quarter-wise GDP numbers, they are very strong. But if you look into the yearly numbers, the bump up is not significantly on the higher side. But having said that, I think the first point to note is that if you look into the yearly numbers in terms of the investment one, yes, investment has accelerated the gross fixed capital formation in the third quarter. But if you look into the year-wise numbers, that has slowed down a little bit from the last year. So that is a one point of disappointment. In terms of the positives, if you ask me, I think agricultural sector and the construction sector stands out. The growth rate in the construction sector is 6.8%. I think is possibly the highest number which I could see from 2014-15 onwards on a quarterly basis.
Okay, let's move on. And here's the latest from the tussle that's brewing in the telecom space. And this is also one of the big CNBC TV18 exclusive interviews of the day. Bharti Enterprises Chairman Sunil Bharti Mittal has reacted to telecom regulator TRAI's latest order on predatory pricing. In an exclusive conversation with CNBC TV18's Megha Vishwanath on the sidelines of the World Mobile Congress in Barcelona, Sunil Bharti Mittal said that Bharti Airtel will challenge the order as that's the only option that is left before it. Megha caught up with Rajan Matthews as well. Here's an excerpt.
Telecom industry has been into a lot of litigation. Unfortunately, I hope that the regulators and the governments see all the litigation that is sitting in the telecom industry and lower the cause of litigation. On this one, we have heard the regulatory chairman to say legal recourse is welcome. So I don't think so there's any other choice here.
So you will jump onto the legal battle?
I don't think so there's any choice, because you can't be in the market with your hands tied up. So I think a legal recourse is inevitable.
All right. Another thing that I would like to get your comments on is that one of the reports that was done by an independent network, which is OpenSignal, stated that India has one of the lowest 4G speeds. Not just about the developed economies, we're lower than even Pakistan. So, you know, your comments on that, are we making enough investments towards speed, or is everyone focused on just capacity?
No, I personally, I mean, Pakistan doesn't even have a 4G network, so it's not that we are behind Pakistan in terms of speed, but you must keep in mind that India now has one of the largest users in terms of the data consumption. We are at 10, 11 GB a month. There are no other countries which are at that level currently. So the consumption is so high, given the lower pricing. People are guzzling, you know, videos, entertainment, live digital TV and all that. That puts a lot of pressure on the network. But despite that, if you see OpenSignal's report, they have clearly said that Airtel networks are the best performing networks in India, and they've certified that three times over now. In that context, I would say the customers are now enjoying higher speeds. As the, you know, tariffs and all stabilize, and all this, I would say, data guzzling that is going on because of almost free pricing, when that changes, I think speeds will get better. In terms of investment, I think billions of dollars are being invested to put more and more network and more capacity and more coverage.
All right, one final question on your partnership with Google on Android Go. You are planning to get that to India. We've seen many devices that have been launched right here at Mobile World Congress. What's the bigger mission here?
Well, I think our platform of Mera Pehla Smartphone is a great platform where we are bringing a lot of devices. You will see us not only launching Android Go, which is the entry-level smartphone and expands the base for smartphone. And our view is very clear. Go for entry-level, good, high-quality smartphones rather than feature phones, which needs to be dropped out. And people deserve to have smartphones in their hands, especially when you have great networks on 4G. And the platform that we have built will also get high-end phones from Samsung, the new phones, Apple. All of them will be coming through. So Airtel customers will enjoy a galaxy of phones.
All right. Final question, sir, on Singtel continuing its backing for Airtel. Your war chest has increased in terms of your financial muscle to fight back. You know, where will we see these investments now, and what is the year look for you from here?
Well, I think it's a very strong endorsement coming from Singtel. As you know, Singtel is a significant entity, majority owned by Temasek. For them to stand behind Airtel in these difficult times in India gives a very clear message that Airtel is there to keep its leadership position, and whenever more monies are required, our partner Singtel will step up.
I want to get a quick comment about a few, responses from the Vodafone CEO that has surfaced on the sidelines, which says that the TRAI guide or order on predatory pricing completely favors Reliance Jio. He's gone on record to say that. He's also said that, that this needs to be legally challenged. I caught up with Sunil Bharti Mittal just a couple of minutes back right here in Barcelona, and he echoed those thoughts, and he said that taking a legal recourse is inevitable. Your comments on that, sir?
So what we do is we allow the individual member companies to actually litigate on these matters. Tariffs are a market reality, and those are litigated there. Our issue is with the regulator's order, not even with the regulator. A particular order and series of orders seem to have distorted the level playing field, and that is what we have highlighted. So our issue is not with any operator. The individual operators will vigorously pursue their interests, and that's fine, and that's the way it should be. The role of an association is to, one, try and make sure that the government's policy, the regulatory policy, are equally applied to everybody. And so that's the role we play. And as they say in India, if you see something, say something. So that's all we've done.
All right, we've got more news coming from the telecom space. We told you first in September last year. Now it's official. Telecom firm SL has filed for bankruptcy in Mumbai's NCLT. Today, SL's overall debt stands at around 19,000 crore rupees. And the lead banker for the company is State Bank of India. For more on that story, let's go across to Yash Chen, who's been tracking the developments through the day. Yash, give us the details. Well, clearly the increasing challenges in the Indian telecom space have started taking a toll, at least as far as the smaller telecom players are concerned. And as a result of which, we saw today Aircel filing a petition under corporate insolvency resolution process on a debt of approximately 19,000 crore before the Mumbai bench of National Company Law Tribunal. And if you see Aircel's this particular step of filing the bankruptcy before NCLT is not a step which has been taken in a rushed manner. It is a result of what has been happening with the company in the past few years, starting from the point where the foreign parent Maxis pulled out of the plan of infusing more cash into the company to support the Indian balance sheet, to the point where the company failed to get a nod from the lenders for a mega 15,500 crore debt recast plan. The directors of the company in today's note have also acknowledged the fact that due to the entry of the new disruptive player, things have gotten more difficult, competition has gotten more intense, which has led to widening of losses and debt as far as Aircel's India operations are concerned, and they've reached a point where it's gotten more difficult for the company to manage day-to-day expenses, to manage day-to-day functioning, because of which they filed the bankruptcy petition before NCLT. We don't have the dates as far as the mentioning or the hearing of this particular case is concerned, but we'll keep you updated as and how the case unfolds going forward.
Okay, yes, thanks for taking us through that. Of course, SBI is the lead banker, so watch out for that stock come tomorrow morning. But let's move on to an exclusive story. We learned from sources that SR Steel's Committee of Creditors has called a meeting on the 5th of March. The company's resolution professional will present both bids to creditors. There has been no decision yet on eligibility of New Metal and ArcelorMittal's bids yet. The insolvency professional is currently seeking legal advice for the same. Remember, on Feb 12th, we were the first to tell you that Tata Steel has emerged as the highest bidder for SR Steel. Time for a very, very short break, but on the other side. What are the chances of a big bang Tata Elxsi TCS Tata Technologies merger?
You should ask their shareholders.
TCS chief Rajesh Gopinathan rules out any merger with Tata Elxsi. That exclusive interview on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching India Business Hour Plus. Let's get you the big exclusive from the IT space. MD and CEO of India's largest IT company, TCS, Rajesh Gopinathan, has completed 1 year at the top chair last week. In an exclusive interview with me earlier today, the TCS top boss laid out the strategy for the company's next leg of growth and expressed confidence that the company will continue to grow ahead of industry average growth rates. He also said that he expects real momentum to pick up finally in FY19. Not only that, Rajesh Gopinathan also clarified on merger talks between Tata Elxsi and TCS. This is something that everyone wants to know, Rajesh. NASSCOM has already given its guidance for the IT sector. TCS is on the Executive Council. 7 to 9% is what they are expecting, which is a marginal increase. TCS has obviously been ahead of, for the most part of the last 10 years, been ahead of industry average. Will that continue in FY19 as well?
Yeah, it depends on what the industry is. I think if you take the industry as technology services providers, we definitely are. Yeah. But NASSCOM now represents a much wider variety. Yeah. Yeah. There are delivery centers of foreign companies here. There are captive units of other industries here. Yeah. They're all getting clubbed into and they're being called part of the industry. Hardly part of the industry. That's not their business. Yeah. So in our competitive set, I think we are quite confident about it. The rest of it depends on company dynamics and rather than competitive dynamics. So we don't want to comment about it.
Okay, but will you be within that range or higher?
Again, as I said, I don't want to use that as a benchmark. Okay, it's not the right one.
In terms of the scale and the deal momentum, are things looking better as you go into FY19? Is FY19 looking like a better year than FY18?
So every time around this time of the year you ask that question.
I always ask you if the next coming year is going to be better. And you often do give an answer, Rajesh.
Yeah, okay. I need to be more careful than that then. See, the momentum is there, as you've clearly seen from the deal side of it. And from an industry perspective, various industry groups are coming together. We have called out the bottoming out in retail. And as you've seen, some of the deals are coming from that
And you've said the big challenge that is BFSI, another 2 quarters left and that should start getting better.
I think so. We are much more constructive on insurance as we see this. And banking is still an area that's work in progress. and we need to see how that turns out. So other than that, most of the other industries are actually doing quite well.
At a group level, Chandra is working on increasing synergies. As you look at going to the next level, building the scale further, how important is synergies across Tata companies, the other IT companies, there's Tata Elxsi, there's Tata Technologies. Have you started those synergies already with the other IT companies in the group?
I think the chairman's message on simplification and synergy and scale is very powerful.
Yeah.
And technology per se could act as the single most integrating factor across the group. So there's a new chief digital officer in the group, and thinking is also becoming much more widespread as to how do we optimize and how do we enable technology to act as a fabric that integrates across the entire group. So we are very excited about it and how do we participate in it. But it has to evolve.
What are the chances of a big bang Tata Elxsi, TCS, Tata Technologies merger?
You should ask their shareholders.
but is that an option, looking at a merger with other IT companies
That's
in the
not
group?
the focus of the agenda.
That isn't.
So, no.
Okay.
All right, let's shift focus now to Motown. Harley-Davidson today launched 2 new motorcycles as part of its Softail portfolio, the Deluxe and the Lowrider. More importantly, though, MD for India and China, Peter McKenzie, weighed in on the commentary and the narrative that's been coming from the United States President Donald Trump with regards to customs duty paid by Harley to export bikes to India. Speaking with Arif Sherwani, McKenzie said that the company has been assembling and manufacturing in India for quite some time now, and the CBU imports are far too small for a customs duty cut to have any significant impact. Listen in.
We welcome open and free trade agreements in any market around the world where we conduct business. And so the card we're dealt here is what I need to work with. We have some local manufacturing, we have some CBU products, so we try and mitigate price fluctuations through those 2 models.
How much of an impact are you seeing on the hike in the budget on CKD duty?
So there will be an increase there. That's something beyond our control. What we have done today is announced that we're protecting our current price positioning until the end of the financial year here, in which case then we'll need to reevaluate what does that increment look like.
Right. So you will not be altering the prices going forward, at least for this year?
Correct. For this financial year.
And any projections for the next year? Where do you see pricing? Do you see it increasing going into the next year?
We're still running those calculations, and because we have a mix of CBU and CKD,
right.
As I said, trying to mitigate the price fluctuations through those 2 models as much as possible.
Well, it's not Harley-Davidson. India's own Harley-Davidson. Royal Enfield is also keeping a close eye on that issue. Earlier today, I caught up with Rudhvijay Singh. He is the president of Royal Enfield. And I asked him about the debate that's been triggered by Donald Trump that Peter McKenzie was also talking about. But he says Royal Enfield is not perturbed. Listen in to what he said.
We work with 6 P's, not 1 P. We don't work with price as the only lever for growth. We have a proposition, we have a product, we have physical experience, we have promotions, we do a lot more. So price, only discussion on price, almost at Royal Enfield I can tell you, and my honest straight answer is, price comes almost last in any boardroom discussion or anything. It's not the first discussion anyway. For North America, since you asked North America, I'm a P&L brand guy, not a politician, so I'll stick to Royal Enfield. North America is a strategically critical market for us. We have our own team there. We are still in the first phase of, like I was saying for some of the other markets, learning. We will earn later. Let's learn first, earn later. That's been our focus. We are still in learning stage. The first signs of what we are redeveloping in terms of distributive reach, which is the physical experience, is working. Our product portfolio with the new twins coming in will round off the product part, and our proposition is rock solid, which is pure motorcycling. The rest of the stuff on price, etc., is incidental. Let the bean counters do that.
So, but if there is a retaliatory hike in import duties, I mean, that would hurt you, definitely, right? Even though price, as you said, perhaps comes at the end. I mean, it's the 6th P in your, when you make a strategic evaluation of a market.
I personally believe there is no such thing as overpriced. It's under-marketed. We will market it well. It doesn't really matter to us.
Okay, we will have to take a very, very short break on the show. But when we return, we will tell you why is Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates worried about cryptocurrencies. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Let's take a look at today's market action. Weak global cues dragged the Wall Street today as bears emerged victorious in a volatile trading session. So the Nifty saw some wild swings before finally ending below the 10,500 mark. Sensex closed about 0.5% in the red. Banks were the biggest losers in today's trade, with that index slipping more than 1%. Mid-caps relatively outperformed and ended absolutely flat. Well, from one asset class to another, cryptocurrencies are killing people in a fairly direct way. That's the word coming in from Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft. Participating in an Ask Me Anything session on Reddit, Bill Gates blasted the anonymity of cryptocurrencies. He said, and I quote now, "Right now, cryptocurrencies are used for buying fentanyl and other drugs. So it is a rare technology that has caused deaths in a fairly direct way. I think the speculative wave around ICOs and cryptocurrencies is super risky for those who go long," end quote. Ron, clearly everyone signing up and saying that cryptocurrencies isn't a good idea, but there's some good news for government as far as highway monetization back home is concerned.
Absolutely, Kritika. But before that, you're absolutely right. There are very few people who have anything good to say about cryptocurrencies. We've been getting a lot of criticism against it, but I think Bill Gates has taken it to a whole new level. His description sounds rather macabre. So let's see whether the others can match up to that. But as Kritika was saying, there's good news as far as government's plans to monetize national highways. Well, because they are seeing good momentum now, because Singapore's MAIF investment has won the bid for the first round, which had 9 highways on offer under the toll operate transfer model. The company's bid of over 9,600 crore rupees exceeded government's expectations of around 6,300 crore rupees. So, therefore, that will bring some cheer perhaps for the government. But let's get you an exclusive story now. Sources are telling us that Dish TV and Videocon D2H deal could undergo a complete overhaul. Nisha Poddar, who broke that story and who's been on top of that story now, she gets us all the details. So Nisha, help us understand, the viewers, what does this really mean for the deal, and why does Z Group want to buy out Videocon's stake? What value do they see in this?
This was the largest consolidation in the DTH space, and now Dish TV looks like it's going to be in full control of the mega merged entity. Sources with direct knowledge, at least 2 independent sources, have shared with me that Dish TV is in talks to buy out Videocon D2H completely post the proposed merger. Now, what that will mean is that Dish TV, which was supposed to have 31% stake in the merged entity and Videocon 28%, will buy out that 28% and merge it with itself in an all-share deal. This could also trigger an open offer for the merged entity stock for the minority shareholders of the company. So that is the proposed transaction that I'm gathering at this point could be what could really finally fructify. At this point, remember that in November 2016, Dish TV and Videocon had really announced the merger plan, and that merger has got all the approvals and could be a merged entity and be a listed merged entity by mid-March. Post that, this particular transaction to buy out Videocon completely could really be taken up by both the houses, and this is probably because insolvency proceedings has really been started by the lenders on some of the Videocon group entities, is what I gather.
Okay, Nisha, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining in. With that, we will take a short break. Up next, the Union Cabinet approves a draft law to tackle human trafficking. Details when we return. Welcome back. Here's another CNBC TV18 exclusive from the insurance space now. We learn from sources that insurance regulator has withheld the final nod to Reliance Capital's foray into a health insurance space. Yash Chen, who broke that story, is here with the details. Yash, Reliance Capital stock tanked at the back of your story. Why exactly has IRDA withheld this final nod?
Well, just first to understand where has the approval process for Reliance Health reached so far. So Reliance Health has received its R1 or the first level approval in September 2017. It received its R2 or the second level approval in December 2017, which means that the company has 2 out of 3 approvals which are required from IRDA to start its health insurance operations in India. Now, what we're given to understand here is that the insurance regulator IRDA has held back the issuance of R3 or the final approval, which is the most crucial one for the company to initiate its health insurance operations in the country. Now, why has IRDA held back the final approval? What we're given to understand is that because that has happened because the parent company, which is Reliance Capital, is yet to receive a CIC license or a core investment company license from the Reserve Bank of India. Now, what is a core investment company license? If you look at Reliance Capital, the company has investments in various companies, approximately 20 companies from diverse sectors, and RBI mandates such holding companies to transfer all these alternate investments in a CIC or a core investment company model, post which it gives them that very crucial license. Now, IRDA has made its stand very clear and firm that till the time Reliance Capital does not submit this core investment company license, which it will receive from RBI, it will not issue that very crucial R3 or the final approval required by Reliance Health to start its business operations in India.
Okay, yeah, sorry to cut in button there, but we'll have to leave it at that. Thanks very much for bringing us those details. Meanwhile, India has taken a crucial step towards tackling human trafficking as the Union Cabinet approves the country's first ever anti-trafficking law. The draft bill proposes that traffickers will be punished up to 14 years in imprisonment. And what comes as a bigger step is that a trafficked person who gets into prostitution will now be dealt with as a victim rather than as an offender. Remember, in the current law, there is no distinction between the trafficked person and the trafficker. Well, one has to say never. It's better late than never. With that, we're going to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. But before we go, the country today bid farewell to superstar Sridevi. The beloved actor's last rites were conducted earlier today in Mumbai, and her family, the film fraternity, and thousands of fans paid their last respects to her in Lokhandwala. We leave you with those images. Thank you very much for watching India Business Hour. We'll be back tomorrow, same time.